by a new guy that isn't John Lasseter, and this movie is the third installment to the Cars franchise, which I guess is a franchise now, as the title implies. It's Cars 3. We've had 3 of these movies for some reason over Incredibles or any of the other series they could have made trilogies out of. They just decided to do it with Cars. I don't know why. And this once again stars Owen Wilson, and this one is basically about how Lightning McQueen, after doing racing for so many years, he's kind of being seen as old now. He's kind of being seen like he's an old guy. He's no longer the rookie he was in the first movie. In this movie, he basically gets in this huge crash all of a sudden, and his season has not been so good so far. So a lot of people are encouraging him to retire, and he's like, I don't want to retire. I decide when I'm done. So he gets this trainer, and he decides to train to come out on top at the end of the movie and do a race and beat this guy called Jackson Storm, yada yada yada. So guys, let me tell you my quick opinion on the Cars franchise so far. With that first film, a lot of people thought it was really good and one of Pixar's best, but then there was a huge other group of people that think it's one of Pixar's worst movies. And I'm gonna have to say that as well. I think it's one of Pixar's least movies. I think it was that first Pixar movie that was just kind of like, huh. That could have been a lot better. But I'm pretty sure the purpose of the first Cars is to be a harmless kids movie with nothing for adults, because it kinda is that. It's just a harmless kids movie, and it sold a lot of toys, which I guess that was a success. It did what it wanted to do, and it got really popular somehow. So then they decided, hey, let's cash in on that, and let's have John Lasseter direct again, and have him do Cars 2. And that movie was awful. I think the first Cars movie is fine. I think it's fine. It's not like anything great. It's fine. Even people who love the first Cars movie can universally agree that the second one is Pixar's least good movie. It's literally their least of their entire filmography, which is full of some great stuff. And since the other 2 Cars movies were so successful and they sold so many toys, they decided to make a Cars trilogy. Because someone in Pixar had the brilliant idea to make 3 Cars movies to get so much money, and now we have this third film, which is once again, it's okay, it's fine, it's alright. It's nothing compared to a lot of the really good Pixar movies. This movie is just okay. It is the dictionary definition of an okay film. I wasn't really looking forward to Cars 3 either. I was kind of just like, oh boy, another Cars movie, great. And this movie, like I thought, was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's a predictable, generic, harmless kids movie with nothing really in there for adults. This movie is so just fine. Before I go to my negatives, I should probably start with the positives. Well, there are some positives in this movie. First of all, the animation is fantastic. The animation for the every Pixar movie ever is fantastic. And even for a universe of just a movie where it's like Cars took over the world, which is some people see as the best Pixar concept of all time, which I don't really get. But this movie is basically, it still has really good animation. The animation in this movie is fantastic. This movie also has a really good moral and a few fun scenes. Like, the end of this movie is easily the best part, even though it was super predictable where it was gonna go. It was super predictable what was gonna happen. I was like, come on, do the thing that I think you're gonna do, and then they did it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I knew it. It has a good moral, it has a good message at the end, and it also delves into Doc Hudson's past a lot more than the first one did. This actually talks about Doc Hudson a lot. They have flashback sequence with Doc Hudson in them. Obviously, he isn't voiced by Paul Newman because Paul Newman passed away, but he was my favorite character of the first Cars. He was by far the most interesting part of the movie, and I was so glad that they actually delved into Doc Hudson's past in this movie, because that is the most interesting character. And also, they do tone Mater down in this movie. That's another pro with this movie, because in the first movie, he was like, kind of the Jar Jar of it. He was kind of annoying, and he was just like, bleh, but he wasn't in the whole movie. He wasn't like the star of the movie. And then Cars 2 was all Mater, and it made his character 10 times worse than he already was. So that was just no. So I think Pixar listened to the complaints, and they decided to lessen his involvement in this movie, and that's definitely a plus. He's barely in this, and while he's there, he's not funny at all. I don't really understand why a lot of people like Larry the Cable Guy so much, but definitely in this movie, I was so glad that they toned him down. That was definitely a plus. He's in like 10 minutes of the movie. And that's really all you can get from this movie that's a pro. It's fun for kids, it has a good moral, and kids are gonna like it. Adults, there's not really much for them there. Most Pixar movies are mature, and they have deep themes, and they have characters that you love. This movie doesn't really have any of that. Like, movies like Inside Out had characters you loved, it had really great themes about it, there was so much great humor. In this movie, it's just like, it doesn't even feel like a Pixar movie. Like, going into this movie, I knew exactly what the movie was gonna be. It was just gonna be an unfunny, predictable movie, and that's exactly what I got. This movie, for most of the movie, it's very unfunny. There was maybe only 1 or 2 parts where I chuckled in this movie, which is really a shame because there are so many humor attempts scattered throughout this movie. I did hear some people laugh in the theater, so I was like, okay, good for them, I'm glad they enjoyed it, but I didn't really find any of the humor that good. It really falls flat, especially in the first hour, which is a huge drag to sit through. It honestly felt like I knew what was going to happen in this movie. I knew everything that was going to happen throughout the film, and then in the first hour it was like, let's stall, let's make this as slow as we possibly can. And it's like, it's so predictable, so I was just waiting for all the predictability things to happen in this film. So it was just like, when it stalled, I was like, hurry up, why aren't you getting to the point already? This movie is 2 hours long, and it could have easily been shaved off for like 20 minutes, and this movie could have been like 1 hour and 30 minutes, which would have been a lot better for it, because this is a simple, generic movie. The characters in this movie are once again just fine. Lightning McQueen in this movie is just fine. He's not like the most annoying character ever, he's just Lightning McQueen. He's just a fine character, and you follow him throughout this movie, and he's just okay. And his trainer in this movie, I forget her name, it's like Cruz or something? Yeah, that's her name. I think she goes in a good direction, even though it was super predictable. Her character went in a good direction towards the end of the movie, but her character from the majority of the movie was honestly really annoying. She was supposed to be like the Dory sidekick character, because everyone didn't like Mater, right? So they got to replace Mater with another sidekick character that's kind of like Dory instead, except without the short-term memory loss. That's basically what Cruz was like to me, and she in this movie was also really annoying. Like I said, none of the humor works, so it was like every time she tried to be like Dory, it was just like, it's not funny. Honestly, there's not really much to say about Cars 3. This is just another generic movie with not a lot of things for adults in there. There are some things I liked about it, like the moral, even though it was super predictable, and the delving into Doc Hudson's past I really liked. But everything else, the characters are just fine. They're okay. Some of them are really annoying, and most of them are just okay. And the story is just predictable as heck. I predicted where everything was gonna go. This is just exactly what I thought it would be. A fine kids movie that's okay, and it doesn't really do much for adults like the other films in the Cars series do. I'm gonna give Cars 3 a C. This is a little bit disappointing because a part of me was hoping that this would be the best film in the Cars franchise and it would right the wrongs that the other movies did, but for me, it's fine, it's okay. Can we please just get Incredibles 2 now? I don't think we need any more movies in this Cars cinematic universe, because it's basically a cinematic universe now, because they have the 2 plane movies and now a Cars trilogy. I don't know why we got that before Incredibles, but it's a thing, I guess. Alright guys, if you like my review of Cars 3, be sure to like this video, be sure to subscribe, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.